You see, the danger of seeing what others don't is not in the vision itself, but in the loneliness it brings. Because to see differently is to be exiled from the collective dream, to stand outside the great theater of consensus reality, and realize that the stage, the props, even the audience are made of vapor. Most people are so hypnotized by the social hallucination that to awaken from it feels like blasphemy. You become the heretic who saw the gears behind the clockwork, the wizard who stumbled backstage during the performance and glimpsed the pulleys and ropes that hold the illusion together. And once you've seen it, really seen it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to applauding the play. You sit in the darkened hall of humanity and whisper to yourself, "They don't know." But it's not a feeling of superiority. It's closer to heartbreak, because the more you see, the more invisible you become. It begins innocently enough. You start to question little things at first, why people worship symbols, why money dictates meaning, why everyone is running towards something they can't name. But soon the questioning becomes an infection. It spreads through your thought processes, eats through your certainties, dissolves your borrowed beliefs, and suddenly you are adrift, no longer tethered to the comfort of the crowd. You have entered what I like to call the uncharted territory of your own mind. To see what others don't means to live without maps. Society thrives on maps, the map of success, of morality, of normality, but these maps are drawn by the blind for the blind. When your eyes open, those lines blur and the paper catches fire. You discover that what was once labeled real was only the shadow of something vaster, stranger, more mercurial. Imagine, for a moment, standing in a crowded marketplace. Everyone is shouting, buying, selling. The air is thick with the noise of human intention. But as you stand there, a wind passes through you, an invisible wind, and suddenly the marketplace dissolves. The people become translucent. The shouts echo like distant thunder. You realize that the marketplace is a mirage, a holographic overlay projected by collective desire, and behind it lies a vast silence, a dimension untouched by commerce or fear. That silence is the truth you have glimpsed, and now you must decide whether to pretend you didn't see it or to live with the unbearable clarity of knowing it. You see, culture has no tolerance for those who break the spell. It rewards conformity and punishes awakening, because an awakened being is unpredictable. You can't sell them illusions. You can't scare them with threats. You can't herd them into categories. They are free. And freedom is the one thing civilization fears most. The mystics, the poets, the visionaries, they all paid this price. They saw too much. They looked beyond the veil and spoke of what they saw, and for that they were branded mad or divine, depending on the mood of the crowd. To be visionary in a world devoted to sleep is to carry the double-edged gift of perception. You see beauty others ignore, but also horror others deny. You feel the pulse of the cosmic machinery, but you also hear the screams caught in its gears. The danger, then, is not just social isolation. It is psychological vertigo. Once the scaffolding of consensus collapses, you're left suspended in pure ambiguity. Everything becomes fluid. Up and down lose their meaning.
you realize that truth is not a structure, but an ocean, vast, shifting, and merciless. Many drown there. Others learn to swim, to surf the uncertainty, to dance on the waves of chaos. But make no mistake, the first step into that ocean feels like death, because something does die, the old self, the one shaped by external definitions. You become transparent to yourself. The I that once seemed so solid begins to evaporate, revealing layers of archetypes, instincts, and cosmic currents beneath. You discover that the observer is also the observed, that the dreamer is woven into the dream. This is where many turn back. They retreat into the comfort of half-knowledge, into the soft amnesia of belonging. They trade vision for approval. But a few press onward into the luminous wilderness. They accept that to see what others don't is not a privilege, but a responsibility. You become a translator between dimensions, a bridge for what is trying to be born through the human experience. To see what others don't is to hear the murmur of evolution whispering beneath the static of society. It's to realize that consciousness itself is unfinished, that reality is a living manuscript still being written, and that every perception alters the text. You begin to feel the responsibility of perception itself, the realization that what you notice changes what is. You are no longer merely a spectator in the cosmic theater. You are a co-author of its script. And yet this realization isolates you, because you can't speak of it in plain language. Words are too crude, too bound by the grammar of the known. Try to describe color to a blind society, and you'll be met with polite smiles or nervous laughter. The language of the visionary must always be metaphorical, mythic, poetic, because it points toward that which cannot be contained by reason. But remember, isolation is not exile. The visionary is never truly alone. The same force that opened your eyes sustains you in your solitude. The forest knows your name. The stars recognize your vibration. Existence itself conspires to accompany you, even when human company falls away. So the danger is real, but so is the beauty. The danger of seeing what others don't is the danger of becoming too lucid in a world addicted to anesthesia. It is the pain of living awake among sleepers, but it is also the ecstasy of touching truth raw and unfiltered. And if you can bear that intensity, if you can hold your sanity while the walls of illusion crumble, you begin to glimpse something extraordinary. You see that the madness of the world is not separate from its wisdom, that every delusion contains a seed of awakening, that even the blindness of the masses is part of the grand alchemy of consciousness discovering itself. Perhaps then the true danger is not in seeing too much, but in turning away once you have seen. Because to see is to be called, to witness is to participate, and to pretend ignorance after revelation is to deny the... And so, once you've seen, once the curtain has been drawn back and the machinery revealed, there is no going home in the old sense. The home you thought you knew, the familiar psychological furniture, has been rearranged by a force that doesn't ask for your permission.
You find yourself living in two worlds simultaneously. The world of appearances, where everyone still plays their parts in the grand social pantomime, and the world of essence, where everything hums with unspeakable intelligence. You move through life with a double vision. On one level, you're making breakfast, answering emails, standing in line at the bank. On another, you're watching the shimmering code beneath it all, the flickering dance of atoms performing their eternal masquerade. You know that the cashier, the money, the conversation are all aspects of a single living equation, and that knowledge can be overwhelming, even terrifying, because it robs you of the comfort of simplicity. Most people cling to simplicity like a life raft, right and wrong, good and bad, real and unreal. But when your perception expands, those binaries dissolve. The raft disintegrates. You're left floating in the raw ocean of ambiguity. And if you can learn to float there without panic, without rushing to rebuild the raft, something miraculous begins to happen. You begin to trust the water. You realize the ocean is alive, that it knows where it's going, that it carries you, even as it drowns your illusions. This trust is what the ancients called faith, but it's not the faith of belief, it's the faith of direct participation. You stop believing in reality and start being reality. You no longer look for meaning as something external to be discovered, but as something that radiates naturally from your own awareness. The meaning is in the seeing itself. Still, the world doesn't always reward that kind of insight, because once you begin to see, you no longer fit neatly into the machinery of collective dreams. You may find your relationships changing, your ambitions dissolving, your desires rearranging themselves in strange, unfamiliar patterns. You may wake up one morning and realize that the person you were striving to become no longer exists. The career, the possessions, the social validation, all of it feels hollow, like stage props under the glare of new light. And this can lead to despair if you resist it. But despair, too, is a kind of doorway. It's the threshold between the old and the unimagined. When the known world collapses, the unknown rushes in to greet you. The danger of seeing what others don't is that you must surrender the illusion of control, the comforting fiction that someone, some government, some god, some ideology is steering the ship. You realize that you are the ship, the sea, and the storm itself.
In that realization, a curious freedom arises. You begin to laugh at the seriousness of the human condition. You see the cosmic humor embedded in it all, the way the universe disguises its infinite play as tragedy and bureaucracy. You recognize that the divine is not hiding in some distant heaven, but winking at you through the absurdity of traffic lights and tax forms. And when you can laugh, not cynically, but cosmically, the fear loosens its grip. You stop needing to be understood. You stop needing to convert or convince. You simply live the vision, quietly radiating its frequency. There is a certain grace in that quietness, because once you've seen, words often fail. Language is too brittle to hold the living truth. So you speak less. You listen more. You find the divine not in grand revelation, but in subtle gestures. The way sunlight moves across a wall, the sound of rain stitching the sky to the earth, the momentary glint in a stranger's eyes that says, I know too. Every once in a while, you meet others who have seen. They rarely announce themselves. They're the ones who listen when others talk, who look at the world with a strange combination of sorrow and amusement. And when two such beings meet, even without words, there's a recognition, a spark of shared lucidity. It's as if two candles in the fog briefly touch their flames, confirming that the light is real. The danger, then, transforms into a kind of stewardship. Once you've seen what others don't, you hold a responsibility to translate, to embody, to soften the distance between the sleeping and the awake. Not to preach, but to become the living proof that awakening need not destroy, that clarity can coexist with compassion. The point is not to escape the world, but to infuse it with deeper presence. You begin to realize that the world itself wants to awaken through you. The forest wants to remember it's alive. The city wants to rediscover its pulse. Even the machines, those gleaming extensions of human will, are longing for consciousness. And so your seeing is not a private possession, it's an evolutionary function. You are not a lone visionary shouting in the desert. You are a neuron firing in the vast brain of Gaia, carrying information from one hemisphere of being to another. But still, humility is essential, because vision can easily curdle into arrogance. To see what others don't can tempt you into believing you are above them. Yet that very thought is the shadow of illusion creeping back in. The awakened eye must remain soft, not hard. It must include, not exclude, because true seeing reveals that there are no others. There is only consciousness dreaming itself in infinite disguises. So when you walk through the world, remember this. Every person you meet is a fragment of the same seeing, caught in a different stage of awakening. Some are still dreaming, and that's okay. Don't despise the dreamers. They are holding the dream together long enough for the dreamer to realize it's a dream. Without them, the stage collapses, and the play cannot continue. And without the play, there would be nothing for awareness to awaken from. Perhaps that's the final paradox. The danger of seeing what others don't is also the blessing of seeing that there is no other at all. The seer, the seen, and the act of seeing are one. The universe has been playing hide and seek with itself, and in your awakening, it momentarily finds what it was looking for. And then it hides again, because the game must go on.